everybody. I'm Rudrani, and welcome to a very special conversation. Happy Women's Day, and in our Wonder Women series is a woman who's truly wonderful. She's someone who has navigated through her life uninhibitedly, with all honesty, and of course, she's a true artist. I'm talking about the talented Kiran Rao. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Rudrani. So happy to be here.
Today, we're going to take you back to that memory lane and to a place that you came from. A lot of people now know, of course, that you were in Kolkata and eventually that you came here. I want to know about your formative years of growing up and how it impacted you, the surroundings that you were brought up in, and the values that you learned, and the confident women that you eventually became today.
I'm so happy you took me on this memory lane. You suddenly took me back to, Calcutta in the 80s, 70s, 80s. And it was a really magical place to be growing up. I mean, I absolutely love the place even to this day. But I think in that time when I was growing up, there was so little idea of money being as important as, say, culture or your values, So we went to a school Loreto House, where it was, in fact, it was a rule that you could not show off your money, because it was really about who you were as a person and not about where you came from or what kind of bank balance you had. And I think that really impacted me. It really made me aware that who you become is in some ways in your hands. Of course, I had the privilege of having parents who were educated and interested in education, and that is a privilege today, I mean, when I think about it. But really, we came from fairly middle class, I came from middle class home, and I suppose my parents really wanted us to grow up independent and confident, and the only thing that they really told me was, you have to take care of yourself financially. That's the only advice I got growing up, was that make sure whatever you do, you can take care of yourself, which honestly gave me that sense of freedom, but also put the onus of responsibility on me. What you do with your life is your, it's going to be your decision and then your responsibility. So growing up in Cal actually really informed that experience, because it's a place full of culture, it's a place full of music, and it's genuinely like a magical place to be growing up, where not everyone is interested in the shoes you're wearing or the clothes you're wearing, I got lucky. I got very lucky.
And cut to that, you came to a world that was very different.
Yeah.
And the reason I asked about the place that you were growing up, because I feel like you are among the very few who have managed to kind of hold on to that part of yours, which I think after coming into an industry, which is of course amazing and creative and all of that, but also extremely, extremely self-obsessed and insecure and all of that, right?
Yeah.
Because of the nature of the industry that you belong to.
Yes, I think you're right. I think that's, being from Calcutta really informed that, because, it was really about who you are, not about where you come from.
And then, you also became one of the assistant directors, of course, associate producer eventually, and then all of that. But at that time, it was truly a man's world even more.
Honestly, I have to preface everything by saying that I come from great privilege, caste privilege, to give it some perspective, is a privilege we take for granted and don't understand how that impacts our experience of the world. Sure. When I came into the industry, I was treated very well and like everybody else, and honestly, I did not feel that there was any sort of discrimination happening because I was a woman. It was hard for me to break in, because it actually is hard for anybody to break into this industry. But I think my struggles were not necessarily to do with being a woman. I worked with people who valued my inputs. My safety was taken care of. The first film I worked on was Lagan, where this production actually really valued assistant directors, where mostly, otherwise I'd only heard that assistant director to pan parag ka dabba leke ghumte hain,
Yeah.
They're like they're not considered professionals who have a certain kind of number of duties. I'm being broadly generalizing. Obviously, they weren't all like that, but Lagan really set a standard in terms of how they treated the crew. Um, so I guess I was very, very privileged. I didn't really encounter discrimination per se, and safety-wise, I didn't have any such negative experiences. But that's not to say that it was all roses for lots of other women who were trying to get in, and uh, I became far more conscious of that as I was growing, as I went on in the industry, and post Lagan worked with many other production houses, where we did have to navigate, broism on a set, boys gangs on a set. As a first AD, I did encounter that, because most of these big sort of other departments where you need perhaps some physical strength were usually sort of led by men, and often I would be mansplained and told things that were clearly discriminating because I was a woman, telling me that I did not know certain things because I was a woman. And I encountered this on one set, particularly when a DOP lashed out at me, and when I was just doing my job and asking him how long a shot would take.
Correct.
And I know that the way that it was said to me was because he could say that because I was a woman, and there was a certain bro code where everybody was like, oh God, she's just nagging. When actually my job was to get the film going and get the shot done. So I've encountered that kind of thing much more, which is a little more in some ways insidious and unspoken,
Subtle.
where it's a much subtler way of discriminating.
But
Where
it
you
is as bad.
assume, it's just as bad, where you assume that the woman doesn't know because, it's technical, so you wouldn't know.
That a lot of people.
Which is really, really annoying. It's so it's there have been other kinds of, I suppose, unequal treatment.
And then you managed to direct eventually, a film like Dhobigar. Of course, at the time, like you said, eventually the crew became more, had more female members, but you've also worked, like you said, with a lot of male members. Have you been in scenarios where you felt unheard? Sometimes?
Sometimes, yes. I do feel like it does happen, and I don't know, especially in the scenarios that I've found myself, I've never been able to quite judge whether it's because I'm a woman or it's because I'm younger than a lot of the men in the room. But I do feel there are subtler ways in which you kind of make a woman unheard in a room, especially when it comes to discussing things that become a male domain, whether it's tech, like I said, tech stuff, or it's budget and money related things. And women, I think, do have to work doubly hard in a room to assert the fact that we know what we're talking about. And mansplaining is something that is just super universal and common. We are constantly told things as if, you wouldn't know this, and that's really one of the more annoying things.
Lagan, of course, you met Aamir there. And I remember I was going through some of your old interviews, and Aamir very jokingly over the years said that, she used to be very rude. She used to always assert her point. Obviously, he was saying that she used to listen to everybody else, but was not fawning over me or anybody else and doing her job. It's very difficult though, right? Because someone who's come in, I feel like, again, your journey, yes, you say you come from privilege, but you've also been able to hold on to that side and also assert authority, like you say it, when even stars like Aamir have noticed. Now, I'm going to that period.
I had a very solid example, or rather a mentor in some ways, was Reema Kagti. She was the second AD on Lagan, and she was probably the one who never took any shit from anyone, and in some ways sort of laid out the kind of example that, like, ADs need to do their job. It's not about liking a person or not liking a person. This is our job. And I don't think I ever got to the point of being as assertive as Reema. I could never be Reema because she's quite an amazing character. But I learned that it's important for you to be true to what you've been hired to do, and to do it without. I've never been rude. So Aamir must have been like, she's cut and dried, but I've never been able to be rude. But I've gone to the point of annoying actors. And there's a very big, when I was an AD, I won't take the name of the actress, but I was on a set with an actress for a commercial, and she was sitting there and we were ready for a shot, but she was reading a newspaper, and I was like, you've got to go for this shot. And she complained about me to the production, and she was like, look at how she's talking to me. And luckily the producer said, look, that's her job. She has to tell you, put down the newspaper, time is money, we have to go for the shot now. If you were like getting ready, it's a different thing. So being an AD, you're never the most popular with actors because you're constantly getting them going. But it taught me an important lesson about about integrity towards your work and about having a work ethic that is beyond sort of personal relationships.
How difficult it is for women who are getting into relationships with men who already were married. Right at the time, of course, he was going through his own divorce with Veena, and then eventually you all got married. But I think you had to go through so much of unnecessary stories, of the back chat, of the fact that has she come in between them, all of that even then, even though with less social media. I think that is why I think this conversation doesn't come up so much.
Yeah.
But you went through that and you navigated that with elegance. I want to talk about that because I feel like a lot of women who want to restart their lives go through it.
I'm glad you brought it up because, lots of people think that Aamir and I connected on Lagan. We absolutely didn't.
Yeah.
He had his own life going on. In fact, went through his divorce after that. Aamir and I actually got together during Swades because he was shooting Mangal Pandey. Yeah. And he was going to be shooting Mangal Pandey, and they were wrecking in and around Y, where we were shooting Swades.
Correct.
And we had just shot a couple of commercials together with Ashu for Coke, that Coke Punjabi and all of those. And that is where Aamir and I reconnected because like for 3 years after Lagan, I had not really been in touch with him. In fact, on Lagan, I barely had any interaction with him because he had his own makeup artist. I was dealing with most of the other actors. Of course, I was dealing with him as well, but Nicole used to do only his makeup. So I had like 50 actors to put through all the other makeup departments. So on Lagan, we had a friendly relationship and I kind of hung out with him, but I had my own gang. I was seeing somebody else on Lagan. So that's another story. But yeah, when we did start going out in 2004, everybody assumed that it had started and that this had caused the divorce, which was not the fact. But I learned what it was like to be in sort of the conversation of a vast majority of people who don't know me, who are just assuming things about me and passing judgment. And this is pre-social media, so I can't imagine what would have happened if it had been now. Luckily, it was pre-social media because honestly, I don't even... It did feature, it did go... it did in some ways affect me because I suppose it was important for me to absorb that now I was going to be in the public eye and would be the subject of conversation and gossip. And I had to process that because, I come from a family which is not a film family. I've just newly come into this world of cinema. I am a film student. I really want to make a film. And suddenly I'm just the plus one in this, celebrity situation. And the girl that Aamir is seeing. So it is a loss of identity for many people who are going to be dating a celebrity. It becomes really about hanging on to your own sense of self-worth and identity and who you are, and a balance between, you do have to play to a public in a sense that you will be on a public stage a lot. So you become much more conscious of what you wear, what you say, how you're perceived in that sense. So it's a bit of a balancing act, honestly, to hang on to who you really are while being palatable in that sense to everyone. But it didn't, luckily Aamir really accepted me for who I was. So I didn't really have to do any great transformation into some glamorous film star or anything like that. And personally, I guess when you marry someone or you start dating someone who's been in another relationship, I think most people have been through that in their lives, either through dating, when they've dated someone who's been in a very intense and long relationship before, there is a baggage that you'll bring. There is stuff that will impact your current relationship, and I strongly recommend couples counseling because it's a great way to cut through all the clutter and to make sense of the other person on an even footing with in a healthy way. You know, because something Aamir and I did do couples counseling, and in a sense it helps to have a neutral ground in which you can, you know, talk about what you need, talk about how you see the other person, or how you want the other person to view what you're saying. And yeah, that was really beneficial to me. It also helped really a lot that Aamir and I from day one agreed that we have to be honest to each other, whatever be the case. That would be the foundation on which our relationship would rest.
I think one thing we talk about women leading authentic lives, which you have always endorsed. I think one moment that was very emphatic and important was the way you all broke the news of divorce, right? The conversation was so beautifully said. I think in our country, now it is way better. Forever it was looked upon, divorce was always looked upon this sort of taboo. Now it is way, way better. You know, when you decide to sort of part in ways and stuff like that, I feel both of you, I think, added to that conversation in a very beautiful manner. I want to tell you all how that was at that time for you. And I truly believe that very few actors were even doing that. You're putting out a statement today, right? But what you all did, coming and endorsing and trying to make people understand why you're doing it and your friends, I think was beautiful.
Yeah, you know, I think both Aamir and I, as public people, feel, you know, we want to live our lives as openly as we can. In the sense that obviously we have our privacy, but our private lives and our decisions are going to be discussed publicly. And we felt that it was important for us to own that discussion because we knew why we were doing what we were doing. And it could easily be misconstrued and, you know, made into something else altogether. So even when Azad was born, he was a surrogate. We actually went out to talk about surrogacy and say what it was and what we went through and why we took that decision. So similarly, when it came to the divorce, we genuinely are working together. We are family. We live in the same building. We have separate lives, but we have lives that are interconnected as well, like many of we have with other family members. So we did think that it was important to share that. Firstly, Aamir being somebody who's loved by the public for 30 plus years, in some way owed it in a sense, in the sense that people who love him on screen would want to know why, you know, this was happening. And for a second, we do think that there's value in having these conversations at a public level because it's, like you said, it's sad that A, divorce is taboo, B, that we wanted to say that we really value marriage as an institution. We think marriage is a beautiful thing, but it's possible for people to have relationships after the social contract of marriage is ended, or people who want to redefine their relationship in some way. So I feel these are conversations that we do have the privilege of bringing into the public domain, and we felt that it was the right thing to share with people who are connected with us.
No, absolutely. And I feel like you rightly said, you know, you all stay in the same building. Reena stays there as well. You know, your mother-in-law stays in that building as well, right?
Yeah.
All of you all stay together. I think a lot of people...
Reena stays in another building, but in a 50, like down the road, 100 meters away.
But that's what I'm saying. It's beautiful. You also have female friendships going here.
Absolutely.
Which I think people cannot fathom can happen. And I think you all break that. Can you elaborate? Because the wedding was beautiful, right? And there are people who don't... They're like, how can you be friends with this? How can you be whatever? But I'm saying that that's because you all ended in a very non-toxic manner. And had like kind of got like a conclusion to it, which a lot of people don't do. You know, within yourselves.
Yeah, I guess one of the advantages, perhaps, I'm guessing here, of a love marriage in that sense is that you really want to be connected with this person when you marry them. You consciously make that decision. And I got very lucky that I literally married a family, and a family that I love. I continue to love. My mom-in-law, who's the apple of my eye, I like adore her. And this family is in itself also unique because Reena never left the family. It was very much the same when Aamir and Reena got divorced, is that the family was highly protective of Reena. And when I married Aamir, Reena was part of the family. And we became really good friends because she's an incredible human being. I absolutely love her. She's a dear friend. So as adults, we can choose to kind of label people as ex-wife or sister-in-law, or they become Reena and Nikhat and Farat and people for us. We have independent adult relationships with them. So that's actually what happened. I mean, this wedding, we all, like we live in close proximity. Ira and Junaid live in the same compound. And it was the most natural thing for us. We were part of the planning. We were deciding what we were going to wear. We were deciding what we were going to do. We had a separate small event just for like 20 people in the family, and then the whole lot of people. So yeah, it was a really fun time, and really I'm glad that people take away that it's possible to have this crazy family, because this is us. This is really who we are.
And also that wedding, right? Like, even Ira, she went ahead and she said, I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's the groom deciding to come in shorts and doing it. I think that also says a lot about the women around you in the family also.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. It was actually, the idea was that Popeye said, everybody comes on horses and on elephants and vintage cars, but I'm an athlete and I'll run to my wedding, and I thought that was the cutest thing. So yeah, Ira's a really strong young woman. She's in fact doing far more with Agatsu Foundation at the age that she is than I could have ever dreamed of doing when I was like 25 years old, So she's very bright, very driven, and very committed to, sort of making mental health a conversation as inclusive a conversation as possible. So I'm actually very lucky to be surrounded by such amazing people.
All right, some fun questions. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. 3 female actors you think are doing some disruptive work in the industry that is paving way for a lot of female actors?
Alia Bhatt.
You can name few if you...
Richa Chadha. Deepika Padukone. Konkona Sen Sharma. Tilotama Shom.
And you can give like quick reasons as well as to why you
yeah, all these women are in their space just pushing the envelope and doing work that 10 years ago we would not expect them to do. They're often directing, producing, while playing these incredible, nuanced, complex characters on screen.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. 3 female directors that you admired because of the work that they do, and it's unfortunate that I have to still ask you female directors, but you know why, we don't have enough.
Yeah. So Konkona Sen Sharma, I love her work. Zoya Akhtar, and so many. I mean, actually, Rima Kagti. Yeah.
Fantastic. If you had to give an advice to your 20-year-old self today, from the wisdom that you've gathered, what would you tell that girl and why?
Put yourself first. Put yourself first. Like, make yourself the first on the list. Make yourself the center of the universe. Really. Because I so often would, do things, but I would be so conscious of, making space for other people, and, when it came, of course, once I came into family first. So, follow your ambitions. And I did, but put yourself first.
As a director, what is one thing that you'd like to change and one thing that you hope becomes even better in the industry that you work?
One thing I would like to change is I would love to have a way in which talent could be streamlined into coming into this industry, to make breaking into the industry easier. I would love to be able to do that. I don't know how it's possible, because we have such a huge country and so many ideas and stories and voices. But if that was possible, that's what I would really change. The fact that there's so many men in every department, it's a fact. It's just, just numbers wise, and it's just male heavy, and I feel I want to change that.
What is one thing from the 18-year-old Kiran that you don't have today and you wish you did?
Uh, um, I'm very similar to the 18-year-old Kiran, you know, now when I think about it. Uh, Perhaps in some ways the ability to relax and let things go. I'm still like that, honestly, but maybe when I was younger, I was even more forgiving, even more, in some ways, chill about stuff.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, but you are still like
I'm
that.
very
Ellen.
like that, honestly. I can't think of a thing that I would change.
This
Except
is-
I would love to change physically, that I was so much fitter.
But I really admire. I hope that we all can say that we're similar to the younger self.
Yeah.
The good qualities of
The
the
good
younger
qualities,
of
true.
the younger self. On that note, a message for all the people who are watching you today during this interview, if you had to say, particularly about Women's Day.
I would say let's be more kind to each other. You know, life is short, and we all are having different experiences, and it'll help if we're just much more kind to each other.
Wonderful. Happy Women's Day.
Thank you, and the same to you.
Thank you so much for being a part of the series. It's called Wonder Women, like I said,
Yeah.
and you definitely are one of them.
Thank you for
Thank
making
you.
me one.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.